Hey, y'all, this is Randy Rogers, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. This is Chris Shiflett, and you're listening to episode 214 of your favorite podcast, Walking the Floor. Hey, you know what I forgot about a long time ago and have not encouraged you to do? Leave reviews on the Apple podcast thingamajigger. I don't know what it is. Somehow you go into Apple, where probably most of you are listening to this podcast, and you can leave a review, leave a nice review. And I think that maybe helps us get better placement or something like that. I don't know quite what it does, but leave a review. Maybe we'll have a contest to give away something to garner reviews, because we have no shame here at Walking the Floor, and we'll do whatever it takes to manipulate the algorithms of technology. Oh boy, come December, the gigs are plentiful. Lots of Chris Shiflett solo gigs come December. Let me just run them down for you. I'm opening a bunch of shows for Social D, which is going to be fun. We got December 3rd in Tempe, Arizona at the Marquee Theater. December 8th, Anaheim, California, House of Blues. December 17th, Las Vegas, Nevada, House of Blues. December 28th, Los Angeles, California, Belasco Theater. All of those, us supporting Social Distortion, which is always a hoot. And then, let's see, some other gigs here too. And these are just solo gigs. December 10th, Venice, California at the Venice West. December 14th, up in Santa Cruz, Moe's Alley. I have a feeling that's going to be a really good one. December 15th, the crown jewel of the month for me, the hometown show, the Hometown Holiday Hoedown. As a matter of fact, the second annual Hometown Holiday Hoedown with my pals Nerf Herder and Logan Livermore. That is at the Soho. Get your tickets. That's going to be great. What else? Then the next night after that, out in Yucca Valley, playing a place I've never played before, new place, A Bar. And Fox, who plays bass with me, he's actually opening the show with his solo thing, so that's going to be a really fun night. It's always fun out in Yucca Valley. And that's a lot of gigs, man. You could almost call that like a tour, except that, it's only really out west, which I apologize for. And I know, I see the comments, I get it. Do you think I don't know that I don't ever get away from the West Coast? I get it. I'm just not popular. That's your fault, the listener. As a matter of fact, you need to listen harder. Anyway, let's get over to our good friends at Zounds, and let me tell you something. Zounds knows that everything is costing more nowadays with inflation and all that jazz, so don't let the increased costs prevent you from owning the gear you want. Buy your gear from Zounds using one of their easy monthly payment plans. Zounds.com. Get over there and get your gear. What are you waiting for? All right, let's get to today's interview.
I bet you love California.
All right, you know the Randy Rogers Band are a bunch of hard-charging Texans that have built a career off logging tons and tons of miles out on the road and playing tons and tons of shows over the years, and continue to do so on the tour that never ends. Luckily, I was able to catch up with Randy when he was at home recently and had a good chat. I've been wanting to interview him for a while, and he did not disappoint. And of course, him being a Texan and all, I had to open up by asking him what it felt like to open shows for George Strait and Willie Nelson. And that's where we kick this thing off. This is Randy Rogers on Walking the Floor.
At the small town in a hurry, with a rear view full of broken hearts.
For a guy from Texas to get to open up for those guys.
Yeah, growing up, those were my two idols. I think I watched Pure Country, the movie, 5,000 times before the sixth grade, I played shows with George, but just us and George, like the Houston Rodeo and San Antonio and some other places. I play in George's golf tournament every year, a charity event that he has, Vaqueros Del Mar for the troops. And So I'm very comfortable around George. I played in open shows for Willie through the years, probably more shows with Willie than George, but never both men, legends, icons in the same building at the same time. That was a first. And in fact, George didn't play a whole lot of shows with Willie, prior to this through the years. And so I felt like it was a really special night for the two of those men. And then for me, if you would have told the 15-year-old guitar slinging Randy Rogers that he was going to have that opportunity, I would have died. I mean, I wouldn't have made it to the 7th grade, So I laid in the floor. We played Friday and Saturday night at the new Moody Arena in Austin with George and Willie. And I laid in the floor Saturday morning, early Sunday morning, and I cried like a baby. I mean, there's no other way to describe if you have a dream and you're chasing that dream your whole life, and how hard it is and how hard the music industry is, and to have that moment at, I'm not saying my career has peaked, but at the prime of my life, career, it was more than special to me. In fact, I just saw Straight last weekend at his golf tournament, his event, and I thanked him from the bottom of my heart, and I hope that he understands how sincere I am about that. I got to spend time with George that night at the show. I got to hug Willie and say thank you to Willie too. And so, those moments are things that I'll never forget. And I mean, that career that, I'm the envy of my peers. I mean, I knew about that show for like about 8 months before they announced it, and I couldn't tell anybody.
Oh man.
Yeah. And it was like,
and you probably just wanted to tell everybody.
I did not screw up, but I had those, those moments when you're on stage and you get in your head and you start thinking about the words and about the bridge instead of the second verse or whatever. I had one of those moments on the first night, and I got through it somehow. I didn't make a mistake, and I thought, all right, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to feel so special to know that you're on those guys' radar, that they know who you are, that they know your songs.
Yeah, I remember the first time we played with Willie. We were out in somewhere in Florida, and Wharf Amphitheater, I think. And the first time you get to smoke with Willie, and I remember hopping off the bus. He had just filmed a video with Snoop Dogg or something, and he was showing us the video, and we were all laughing and smoking. And I jumped off the bus. The first person I thought to call were my parents. I mean, and my dad's a Baptist preacher, was a Baptist preacher. I was so excited. I mean, like,
did you tell him I just smoked weed with Willie Nelson on his bus?
I think I called everyone I know. It was that's just such a rite of passage as a musician. And
yeah, was that before or after your set?
It was right after my set.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a really great story too about Willie. We were playing with Willie in Kansas one time, and I came off stage, and for some reason Ray Price had stopped, and he was passing through. He wasn't on the show. So I go up on the bus after the show to say thank you to Willie, and I'm covered in sweat because the amphitheater the AC wasn't working or something. And they're up there telling jokes and cutting up and catching up. And my grandmother had, there's a picture of my grandmother and Ray Price from the 60s. She followed him around Texas, and she was a huge fan, and they knew each other to some degree. I'm not sure how well they knew each other, but there's a picture of them together. And so I go up and I introduce myself to Mr. Price, and I'm like, huge fan. My grandmother chased you around back in the day. And I looked at Willie and I said, Willie, it is hot as hell in there, man. You're going to burn up. And Ray Price looked at me and he goes, you're the one that chose to do this for a living. That was my intro to really getting to know Willie, and the chance meeting with Ray and him kind of old manning me. So
I mean, you said your grandma knew him back in the day. Like, was she a singer or something? Like, was she a musician herself?
She was beautiful, and she was a fan. And
okay.
I think they loved going out and dancing and going to music. And back then, that Ray Price and Willie, they were playing every night, somewhere, in Texas and always around. So I think it was the Jacksboro Highway right outside of Fort Worth had just all these bars and dance halls. And and they would go dancing on the weekends, you know.
When you think of the Texas Shuffle, it doesn't get any deeper than Ray Price, man. That is cool.
Yeah, it was, you know, those moments like getting to hang with your heroes, you know. I've been very lucky. I've been in the game 22 years, you know, started the band in 2000, same 5 guys in the band for 21 years. So yeah, we put ourselves in some really good positions. We worked really hard at it. My mentor always said the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so we've definitely got
Sure.
lucky.
I mean, my sense is that you guys have built a career on like just hard Scrabble touring, playing tons and tons of shows. Is that you know, kind of how you got a foothold?
Yeah, 100%. You know, 88 Suburban was our first vehicle. We played 300 shows that year. I told my booking agent at the time to book me every night. And we did that. You know, we got on the road and we got better and we got better and we got better and we wrote, and, you know, my songwriting evolved, and I was fortunate enough to have some mentors in my life that helped me, you know, focus on those songs. And we got lucky with some big songs that kind of jump started the career and got us on the radar of the radio, which got us on the radar of Universal Records. And but it was in Texas, you know, if you want to play every night, you can. You might not make any money, there might not be anybody there, but there's places to play.
I mean, how do you keep the same band together all those years touring that hard? Like, do you guys still hit it that hard now? I imagine that would be like how did you manage to find a bunch of other people that were as committed as you were?
Well, we were all in other bands. So we were already we've been in bands since we were 13, 14, 15. Got to college and joined bands. And so in and around Austin, I went to school in San Marcos at Texas State University. And in Austin and in San Marcos, there were just 1,000 bands. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Everybody was playing music. And so we just kind of picked each other, you know, like the cream of the crop from one band ended up joining my band. I had a meeting over at my house that I was renting, and I drew a line in the sand and had a box of wine and said, hey, if you quit your bands, I'll quit my band and we'll join a band and we'll all share money and let's go kick everybody else's ass. And we did. And we kind of never looked back. You know, we were all 21, 22 and no babies, no marriages, no nothing, no money, no parents' money, like nobody backing us. It was either like go get it, or there's no other option except to go get it.
I mean, what did those early tours look like? Like, was it you guys in the Suburban crashing on people's couches? Like, were there like 10 people at the shows? Like, how did you make that work?
Yeah, it started with 10 people at the show. We'd go back and it'd be 50. We were really good at making friends with people that were into music. And so we would crash on their couches. They would tell their friends about us, how much of a good time that they had at the show, how the band was good. And so when we come back, we'd invite those people out, put them on the guest list. They would, in turn, invite 8 or 10 people. I remember we started at Cheatham Street Warehouse in San Marcos, which is where George Strait and Ace in the Hole started in the 70s, and Stevie Ray Vaughan and lots of others, Todd Snyder. But we used to have our friends each drive, so the parking lot looked full, but there don't like many people in there, but the parking lot was full, right? And so people would drive by and just pop in. So, we cut our teeth. I used to say we're the hardest working band in Texas country music, and I honestly still feel that way. We played over 100 full band gigs this year, and I put another, 50 on top of that with my whole month here. Records that I make with my friend Wade Bowen, and along with acoustic shows and private events, corporate stuff, and radio. I mean, I'm popping like 165, 170 this year.
I mean, how do you think, what set you guys apart from the other bands that you were like your peers at the time that were playing? Like, I would imagine, Texas is such an insular, strong music scene, unlike any other place in the world. Like, I've never been to another place that where the people of that state support their local music scene the way that Texans do. But with that, there's like a history and a lineage there of some real heavy hitters. So like where, you got like, if you think of like Townes Van Zandt and Willie, obviously Robert Earl Keen, you're like people like Jack Ingram and Pat Green and people like that. Like, how do you think what set you guys apart from everybody else? How did you get noticed and get those people, first time it's 10 people, next time it's 50 people. How did you get those people coming back? What made your shows different than everybody else's?
Well, we were hungry. And once again, I think we were, without having to brag, but I think we were maybe some of the better musicians that were around at the time, that were actually actively trying to get better and trying to work on their craft. And honestly, Chris, I think that melodically, I think the songs popped us up. I mean, the big choruses, like if you go back, there's a record called Roller Coaster.
Sure.
You listen to those choruses. They're just big, huge, melodic, hooky things. And I think our songs are better. I mean, I honestly do. I think.
Yes.
that, people like Radney Foster, people like Kent Finley, my mentor, they just drilled into my head. Like I'd write 20 songs for a record and they'd say, no, 20 more, 40.
Really?
This is not good enough. Good, just good enough isn't good enough, right? It's got to be way, 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 way good. And so I just had that in my head. And luckily I met Radney. I was opening for Radney. Radney was already having cuts by Keith Urban, having cuts by the Dixie Chicks, having cuts by everybody. And so, obviously I knew that Radney knew what he was doing. And so I did. I followed him around and bugged him and until he would email me back. And then we started writing songs. And then, really Radney Foster taught me how to write a hooky country song. I mean, I grew up on 90s country and, Pearl Jam. So, I mean, I knew what a good song was, right? I knew what I liked. And it was just really learning about how to record those songs as a band. And I think that's what did it.
Do you remember any specific points he gave you on like how to write a better song? Because at that point, you're fairly early in your career, but you'd written a bunch of songs. I know you started like doing the open mic night at like a writer's night or whatever. So you must have had a bunch of songs in your pocket. Like what were some of the specific things that he said, no, it needs to be stronger here, here, and here, or whatever?
Yeah, it's like, so there's no rules, right? So like you don't really even have to have a chorus if you don't want to, right? And your second verse doesn't have to be as long as your first verse, right? I didn't know that. Like because there's a channel at the end of the verse into the chorus in the first verse, you don't have to necessarily have that same channel going into the second chorus. You can just start the second chorus without having that musical piece in there. Bridges don't have to be 4 lines. They can be 2 lines. Bridges can be 1 line. Melodically, the bridge should go somewhere different, but it doesn't have to. It's just there's no set rule book to it. When you're young, when I was 12 and 13, I was trying to write, George Strait songs. I thought they had to be perfect, like in little squares, and
yeah,
up and make sense. If it's the rhyme scheme of ABAB or AABB or ABBC, guess what? Nothing has to rhyme. I rhymed awesome and Austin in the song before, right? Stuff like that where there's just there's really no rule. And obviously get to the chorus, don't bore us. Like why? Especially in today's world, right? And
sure.
It's like, why waste a lot of time telling your story when the chorus can tell your story for you? And, things like that. I never got into like weird tunings and stuff like DGAD and all that stuff. Like nowadays you go to Nashville and people are tuning their guitars all crazy and they're all dropped down a half step. And every time I go into a new write, I'm like, what the hell is this? Really? 3 chords and the truth is really all anybody's looking for these days. So
yeah.
So
it seems like with some of those drop weird tunings, it's sort of like, it's almost like when you try to write a song on like a piano because you don't play piano, and then you figure out the thing that sounded cool on the piano was just like 3 chords and the truth. It's like the same, but it's just, you're just shitty at playing it, so it feels different. You know what I mean? There's that funny thing.
Yeah, another thing too, I think, with the songwriting is, and I've said this before in interviews, but it's like country music to me is, it's the blues, and it's about your broken heart. It's about covering it up with alcohol. It's about cheating. It's about getting left. It's about working your ass off and not getting paid enough. There's these themes, right? Common themes. You go back and listen to Johnny Cash. You go back and listen to, Glenn Campbell. I mean, you just go back and listen, right? And just write about those same things. I mean, it's like, it's not broken. Like, it's not supposed to be happy, cheery, riding around in my pickup truck with my two girlfriends, like music.
But that's a funny thing, because I feel like nowadays there is a constant pressure to have, you can sing about the hardship, but there's got to be this sort of happy ending in the chorus, where it all gets happy again. And I always enjoy when people just leave it sad, or tough, or whatever it is,
Well, I mean, mark my words, I hate that shit. So you're not going to get that on a record for me anytime soon, unless maybe someone holds a gun to my head. So yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's the common themes that people relate to. I think too, a lot of it is you can dance to my music, and I know that like throughout the country, that's not necessarily a thing, but in the South, it definitely still is a thing. I look out there sometimes, especially way down in South Texas, like in the Valley, McAllen area. I mean, the whole dance floor is full. I mean, everyone came there to dance. They're dressed to the nines. When you're 14 years old in Texas, if you don't know how to two-step, I mean, you're not talking to a girl.
No shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's still such a big deal. I mean, like, just so much as like I played a casino gig this past weekend, and it's a seated casino, right? Everyone's just staring at me. I'm like, just get up and dance. Like, we're in love. Know each other. You're supposed to be falling in love and kissing and fighting and stuff.
Yeah. Touching, rubbing up on each other.
Yeah.
Well, since we're on the subject of songwriting, like, how do you go into making a record? Are you somebody that's kind of always chipping away at some songs, or do you sit down like it's time to make a record and go on like a writing retreat with your favorite songwriter buddies and bang out, 30 tunes?
Yeah, I've done that. I've gone on the retreats, but like, here's my notes, right?
Oh, shit.
You can see
you can't read it on the Zoom call. It's just oh, there you go. I mean, all right. People are gonna, if I put that online, people are gonna freeze frame that and steal your ideas.
So like right here on, look at me, I can't see anymore. 9/17/21, broke up with the bottle. I have no clue why I wrote that down. Someone must have said it. Might have been in a movie. Might have been in just conversation, might have been me overhearing someone. So yes, I constantly find myself with this apparatus, writing down ideas. And if I hear something in a romantic comedy, those are really good for like hooky lines, right? So I'll write them down. And then, sitting on the bus, bored, I just always have a guitar in my hand and just any kind of melody. I'm just always trying to find that melody. Which typically my songwriting starts with the melody and with, something pretty. And then I just go through my phone. I mean, and look, it's a never ending thing. And it's a never ending frustrating thing too, right? Writing songs. Right.
It's funny because the whole thing with like having a bunch of voice memos and little notes on your phone, I find turns into this thing almost like you've got homework that you haven't got to, and it's Sunday night, and it builds this pressure of like, oh, I gotta get back and sort through all those ideas and turn them into some shit.
Yeah. So my process for writing writing albums is just as many as you can get, right? And now with my life and how busy we are with raising children and touring, I have to book myself. I have to schedule myself, right? So I'm next Tuesday at 3 p.m. I'm writing either on Zoom with somebody or someone, around town. And, I'll finish the song that week. And next week we'll do the same thing. And so because we're no longer on major record label, we're no longer on Universal, I don't have an A&R team. So what I do is I'll finish the song and then I'll email it to my mother-in-law or my best friend or someone who knows nothing about music, the wife is always going to have the same reaction, right? So we don't necessarily always share it with the wife. She's gonna
my wife's reaction is generally that sucks when I play her something I recorded.
some sort of constructive criticism, right?
Right.
So I'll bounce it off 4 or 5 people, maybe 2 people in the industry or whatever, and just get their feedback. Do I need to change course? Do I need to change the line? Is it even worth pursuing, working on more? So that's kind of been my approach, and I feel like it really works because you get somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to write a song tell you they like it or they don't.
Yeah.
And you get it from a swath of just a whole bunch of different people that may or may not really like your music or care to hear something brand new.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes I feel like if you can get an honest reaction out of those folks, an unbiased reaction, that's the best one. Yeah. Even from my wife, like I just made a new record that hadn't come out yet. And I sent her the mastered version of it. And she pointed it out to me. It's too late now because it's done. But she's like, you said this in like the same line in like 3 of your songs. And I just didn't even notice it. And then she pointed out, I'm like, oh, damn. She's totally right. I should have sent her that before we recorded them.
Well, I've been guilty of that definitely before. In fact, the new record we just put out, Homecoming, I think there's a few things I mentioned more than once. But I think that's all part of the human experience, right? I mean,
right. Because it's on your mind in that time and you're writing these songs and it just keeps coming out. Yeah, it's, you mentioned Homecoming just came out recently, earlier this month. But I assume you guys are early in the process. Like, are you gearing up to go out on like, big, long, year-long tour or world domination type of tour? What's going on?
Well, I feel like we've been world dominating the past 2 years. After COVID, we came back from COVID. I said yes to every single gig. I'm completely burned out right now. There's no other way to say it. We are going to obviously continue. We call it the never ending tour, right? Because we never got enough radio to be big, like in Philly and big, all over the country. We have pockets, Denver, Kansas City, Chicago, Atlanta, so on and so forth, right? That we go and we hit regularly, right? But we kind of call it the never ending tour. We're not fortunate enough to go tour for 4 months, make a shit ton of money, and then take the rest of the year off, right? We have to take it when we get it. So I think we're going to work a little bit smarter than harder next year. I think that's going to probably help with all of our lives and health and relationships with our kids and our wives and our
Is everybody kind of in the same place in their life in your band?
Absolutely, yeah. We all grew up kind of together on the road, right? So, but yes, we're about to put out another single. It's called Fast Car. CMT is going to debut the video in November. It's a great video, great song. We will tour all of next year. Maybe not 99 shows or whatever it was this year, full band, maybe a little bit less. And this is our 9th studio album. So this is nothing new, for us. What I'm really scared of is I feel very confident that this song is really good. And, it may be the one, your career is just like these like plateaus, and then you move up and then you stay there for a while, then you move up. I'm assuming that this song is going to bump us up, and we're going to probably have to work a little bit more than, we maybe want to. But once again, I mean, that's what we do for
good problem to have. Good problem to have.
You're the one that chose to do this for a living.
Ray Price, man, he knew what he was talking about. Like you mentioned, COVID, like coming out of COVID lockdown and all the shows being canceled and all that sort of thing. Like, did that give you? I know for me, it was like, I don't want to discount like the hardship that was for a lot of people, but for me, it was actually this nice time to just be home with my family and have no schedule and go surf and go fish and just hang out with my kids and whatever, I mean, was it like that for you? Like, did it give you time to recharge, or did it give you time to think like, hey, maybe we should knock it down to like 50 gigs a year? You know what I mean? Like, what was that impact for you?
Fear, first of all.
Right. Yeah. They're running out of toilet paper. Fuck.
Yeah, so people don't understand the musicians. We don't make money on our records, right?
Right.
We
Right.
barely make money on our publishing, and the only way we make money is to play shows. And so there was
Yep.
total fear. But once I got over that, my youngest, she turned from 3 to 4 during that time period, and I'd never been able to be around the other girls kind of during that huge transition, speech, personality, all those things. And so I'm very fortunate with my youngest, Rainey, that it happened during that time frame, because, I started looking around thinking about all the shit that I've been missing, being on the road so much. And it definitely put things into perspective. I wrote a song about picture frames. It's on the record. It's about my wife and I and how fortunate we've been to be in this industry, and we've gone all over the country together and gone all over the world together and seen all these amazing places and have all these great memories, all these beautiful cities. And now here we are stuck on the couch, and so that came to mind too, just my relationship with my wife and her traveling with me while I'm touring and staying overnight, for 3 extra nights in Chicago or New York or LA, and all these moments that we've had. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't pick a guitar up for like the first 6 months. After, at that point, I'd been on the road 20 years. I needed a break. There's no other way to say it. I was very thankful that we were forced to take a break, because that's something that we've never done. I've never said no to a gig. I don't feel like I've ever turned down any opportunity. I'm just such a worker that I tell myself that I'm going to stop, and I can't stop, and I can't slow down. And being forced to slow down probably was a really, really good thing for me.
I mean, did that sort of put you in a reflective mood? Because I think there's a sense, like with this new record, you returned to the same studio that you had made and the same producer that you guys made Roller Coaster, and it's called Homecoming. Like, did that time period kind of wind up influencing those decisions?
100%. Homecoming was made because it's exactly what I wanted to create. It's exactly how I was feeling in my life. I felt like it was also something I needed, after doing it for so long and playing shows for so long, and the grind, being on the road. I wanted this rebirth and this rejuvenation of just how far we've come and the things that we have accomplished. And, there's a lot of songs on that record too about, alcohol, and I'm not afraid to admit that we've all struggled with alcohol. There's some songs on there that are dark. I mean, maybe the darkest song I've ever written is Bottle of Mine. I wrote that one morning on Zoom with a cup of coffee and Radney, just talking about, when COVID did hit, it was crazy, right? Everybody started drinking more, and like alcohol sales went through the roof. People had no clue what to do with themselves. And I got to thinking, there's no way I'm the only one that's sitting here with a drink at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And so definitely that's mixed in this record too. And I just hope people understand it's just part of being on the road, having done this for so many years, and all that abruptly stopping, and how that affected all my interpersonal relationships.
Sure.
With my wife, with my kiddos. I made new friends in my neighborhood that I didn't even know. I have a whole new friend group now because of COVID,
Yeah.
Actually time to get to know someone and care about them, get to know their family members. It's such an interesting thing that happened to us right there smack dab in the middle of life.
Yeah. No, it really is, especially like you said, when you're conditioned to never turn down a gig, because, we're musicians like that. I think we all learn that lesson, like what happens, because it's always in the back of your mind when you do this for a living. What if it all goes away? What if it all goes away?
Yeah.
And then we all found out, like, what happens when it all goes away,
Yeah, I feel like, in all honesty, I feel like my family did a really great job. I'm really, really proud of my kids. Think about how hard it is on a little kid to have to go through all that mess,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm real proud of them. They did a great job. 9-year-old and I, we started playing chess. You know, we played chess like every day.
Nice. It was backgammon for us. We got deep into backgammon in our house.
It was so fun. And I don't know if you remember, but we also had the snow apocalypse in Texas. All the power went out. So there were days that we didn't have anything except
really?
You know, we had a fire. Luckily, we had a propane fireplace, but that kept us warm. And then we just had board games and silly stuff to play together. And, you know, it was horrible for a lot of people. I am lucky that we did have a gas fire.
Yeah.
But, you know, those moments I'll never forget, you know, I mean,
right.
Those are times that I would have never had with those kiddos, with my wife. Those memories, it's good stuff.
Oh, and we don't get enough of that when the tour schedule is fully functioning. You know, speaking of Radney Foster, had you guys made records with him after Roller Coaster, or was it just Roller Coaster and then never worked with him again until this one?
So Roller Coaster put us on the map. We had a song called "That's Not the Night" that charted on Billboard before anybody got their hands on us in Nashville. So then we signed at Universal. I made Universal sign all 5 band members, not just me. And we said, we got to bring Radney with us. So Radney did the first 2 records on Universal.
Okay.
We ended up making 4 total records on Universal. But this is the first time that we had worked with him since the eponymous record, Randy Rogers Band.
Okay.
So it had been about 9 years or so.
So I imagine in that time frame, like you guys evolved a bunch. He probably evolved a bunch. How was it different, sort of reuniting with him? Or I mean, how is it the same? How is it, you know? Can you sort of compare and contrast, like with your earlier work with him, if there was just significant changes there?
Well, definitely, his job was easier because we were more seasoned. I wouldn't call us veterans just yet, but more seasoned musicians in the studio itself, right? With studio tricks, tones, amps, you know, gear, the whole 9 yards, right? Definitely more well-versed and more prepared, 100% more prepared. You know, you chart a song, but everybody already knows the song in the band, right? So just little things like that were probably easier on him. It was like strolling down memory lane. It was like we picked up right where we left off, like an old friend. I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but it's the truth. You know, you're so familiar with somebody. You hadn't seen him in 10 years. Not that I hadn't seen Radney, but we hadn't worked together.
Yeah.
And you just fall right back into even just the way you communicate in the studio, the way you communicate about, you know, arrangements of songs. It was like we just never even stopped working with him. And I know that sounds like a line of bullshit to sell the record, but it's not.
Well, because sometimes it doesn't work, you know, when you get back together with the guy that, you know, that you had this great experience with, you know, so, and time has moved on and everybody's changed a little bit. Sometimes it just, you don't jive the same way, but it sounds like for you guys, it was easy.
I think we're all so happy too. You know, sometimes you get in the studio, you don't really know what you're doing. You're frustrated maybe. But we were just so happy to be in there and to work together again. And, you know, that's once again, you know, sitting there on the couch during COVID thinking like, man, this music business, this is dumb.
There's the pull quote from this interview right there. This music in business is dumb.
Yeah. What am I doing? I'm missing my kids. Half the time I'm pissed off, you know, like,
yeah.
And so being in the studio with Radney it was fun. And we made jokes and we got out there in Dockside Studio in Maurice, Louisiana. I don't know if you're familiar or not, but B.B. King made records there. Dr. John made records there.
Oh, wow.
Little vibey place, but no cell phone service, middle of nowhere. You're eating shrimp and griots every day, you know. It's like band camp, you know.
Yeah.
Band camp with your buddies. And so I think it was definitely what we needed. It was that little jolt of, hey, man, we still got this. We're good.
Yeah.
And this record's really good. I'm so proud of this record.
I mean, as far as like the process goes, like I know you made your last record with Dave Cobb. I've made a couple records with Dave Cobb. So I'm kind of familiar with how he works. Like, was it a similar process, or was it different? Like, are you guys tracking live in the room together and then kind of overdubbing stuff after the fact?
Yeah, we didn't have the big room there at RCA, but we track live. So everything goes down at once. Our drummer is just killer, Les Lawless. He might be the best musician in Texas. Just nailed it. He'd get a track maybe the first three.
I mean, he's definitely got the best name of any musician in Texas. I mean, that's pretty goddamn great. Les Lawless.
That's Lawless.
Is that his actual last name? I have to ask, because I grew up, I think a little older than you. I grew up listening to a heavy metal band called Wasp, whose lead singer was Blackie Lawless. But I don't think that was his real name. That was my first thought when I read Les Law. I was like, I wonder if he's any relation to Blackie.
It's even better. It's Leslie Lawless. God give him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, he'd get a track. Johnny Chops, our bass player, if he missed one or two things, we punch it in, and then we just go to town building it. The rhythm tracks went down pretty easy. Jeffrey, our guitar player, would go and he'd mess with it, and it would always, just like Chris, you go back. The first one that he cut was way better than the 10th one that he cut,
Right.
So, it went smooth. It went fun. And yeah, tracking live like that. That's the way we've always done it. We've always recorded all of our records as a band. We're kind of an anomaly in the industry, right? We've been together that long and made all those records together. So I hope people can understand and comprehend how incredibly difficult that is.
I understand how incredibly difficult that is. I mean, I don't know if the average person knows how hard it is to keep a band together, just how fragile bands are for any number of reasons. But yeah, that's tough, and you deserve applause for managing that, for sure.
I'll pat myself on the back.
Yeah, you must be a very what's the word I'm looking for? A balanced band leader. Oh, go ahead.
I'll take that as a yes. Yes.
Yeah. I read in something that you launched a Hefeweizen style whiskey. I don't drink anymore. I've been sober for a long time, so I can't even begin to imagine what that tastes like. What is a Hefeweizen style whiskey outside of the ingredients for an unruly hangover?
Yeah, it's unique. We the world's first ever Hefeweizen whiskey. So it's basically wheat whiskey, right? Aged 3 years. It was a product of COVID. Friends of mine. I'm actually a founder. I'm not just a hired gun. We tasted a million different blends. So it's a blended whiskey. It's got lemon and clove peel. Like it's almost like a craft whiskey, basically. It drinks kind of like an old fashioned right out of the bottle. We live in New Braunfels, Texas, which is really thick German heritage.
Right.
German beer, German whiskey. And I learned a lot, through the process. I didn't know anything about making alcohol. And to be honest, I'm not a huge whiskey connoisseur. I don't have 1,000 whiskey bottles on my shelf. I don't drink Pappy Van Winkle. I'm not a snob when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so it's been really fun, but a great learning curve. It is a delicious drink. But yeah, it's just something else to add to the plate and add to my legacy and add to, once again, the work ethic that I have. We made a really good product, and we're distributed now throughout Texas by RNDC, which is Republic, which means you can get it in pretty much any liquor store in Texas. That's where we're confined to at this point, but obviously growing it, nationwide is definitely the goal.
Interesting. I mean, does that sort of parallel your band? Like started out as part of the Texas music scene and then broke out beyond that. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah. And they say that in the spirit world, right? In the spirit world, they say that making it actually begins in Texas. For whatever reason. I mean, I know we're huge and we've got to consume more alcohol than most states, I would assume. But really this is kind of the testing ground for your liquors. and those other big companies coming down and, getting a piece of it.
I mean, do you seem to have like kind of like an entrepreneurial spirit, like that runs even through how you kind of run your band and everything. Like I saw an interview with you where you were talking about managing other artists. Is that something that you currently do?
Yeah. So I started a management company, 2017, 16, worked with this guy named Red Shahan, who's great. And, started working with Parker McCollum, who is well on his way now to being a huge country superstar.
Sure.
Worked with him up until we moved to the big leagues, right? So I live in Texas. I don't live in Nashville. I do have a condo there and go there and write songs. But I have a publishing deal with Warner Chappell. And so I took Parker to Warner Chappell, and then he was getting so much buzz and so many streams, then we went around, and my partner, Robin, and we went around and took him to every single label, and shopped him, and he got offers pretty much from every label. And so we had been managing him at that point for about 4 years. And the way that I look at it and I approach it is like, if I see a kid that's got the talent, got the drive, I would never sign someone to a contract, right? Like as a manager, I'm going to make you fly. Like, and when you do fly, I'm not gonna be mad about it. Like, let's go to the top. Right. And so
right.
That was kind of our business model. And it really did work well with Parker. And unfortunately during COVID, management company dissolved, and now I don't have a management company. It is something that I think I'm good at. I think that if you're a 14-year-old out there listening to this podcast and you don't know shit about publishing deals or what even BMI means or ASCAP means, what record labels really do. I just think because I've had so many deals in my life, I've been through so many publishing deals and record deals that, I can make it less scary, right? And I think that's what I provide as a manager. I've already been through the fire. And so I think that if I ever slow down with this touring mess, right, and the kiddos in my personal life, I want to eventually open shop again, because it is my belief there's a 12-year-old, 13-year-old little girl sitting after school writing beautiful songs that, wants to be Miranda Lambert out there, and Texas needs another strong female. In the same light, I believe there's another band out there that's in their garage right now that just doesn't know how good they are yet. And they're really great, and I love helping people. I wanted that radio success for me and my band. I wanted number ones. I wanted top 10s. We existed 4 albums on a major label. We could not figure out how to get arrested at radio. But watching Parker have number ones, have his songs climb the charts, I don't have one bit of jealousy or envy. I'm just so proud of him. It makes me feel like I've done my job as a mentor, and I'm paying it forward because so many people open those doors, for me, and
sure,
and let me sleep on their couch like Radney Foster and cook me breakfast before I went out to co-write. So I'm definitely interested in that aspect. I love the business. When we first got going as a band, I had a fake booking agency and a fake name, and I would call and I would book Randy Rogers' band as Wade Enterprises.
That's a good idea. Really?
And there were like promoters and club owners that like didn't know for years until I finally said it.
Did you ever have one of them go like, God damn, your booking agent's a ball buster. Tell him to mellow out.
100%. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah. We're not taking 1,500. We're taking 2,500.
Hey, listen, one last question, and then I'll let you get to it. I noticed on your website you have like a bunch of live recordings up there that you get for that people can download. It all like reminded me almost like a Deadheady kind of thing, I didn't know if that was an influence. Like, does your fan base get like obsessive about like, oh no, the set from, Floors on July 28th in 2008, that's the one, like, is it that kind of thing with your fans?
We've been through that several times throughout the career, right? Where they would come out and they would record all the shows and then we'd pop them up live. We haven't done it of late. I don't really know why we haven't done it of late, but it is something because we have the Live at Floors album. We have Live at Billy Bob's album. We have a Live at Cheatham Street album. I definitely think people gravitate towards that. They can say they were there. They can say they were a part of it. The Live at Floors album, we didn't tune it at all because the crowd was singing so loud. There's no way that you could go back and edit anything in the studio or fix anything. And so it's very unique. I will say this.
Yeah, a live album actually being live is incredibly unique.
Incredibly unique, right?
Yeah.
Nobody knows that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fans here, that love this type of music, they are diehards. And I can't say thank you enough to those people that have put us on the road and kept us on the road for 22 years. It's unbelievable how much pride they take in, they go somewhere and, I will not name any country artist because I'm not a shit talker, but, they'll go to Kansas City to a football game or something and the kids will be playing, what they think is country music. And our kids are like, hell no. That is not even close to what country is sound like, So that ownership of the artists that come out of Texas is a real thing. It really is.
Sure. Awesome, man. Well, I will let you go back to prepping your Hagrid outfit and getting all ready for tonight.
Dude, my hair, my wig that I have is like down to here. And oh my gosh, my little girls are like, they think it's so funny, but I never was a guy that had a whole lot of great hair, So it is so nice to just headbang, man. Headbang with that wig on.
Oh, let your inner headbanger loose. I love it.
I know. I'm going to go to my office and go get my guitar and just
put on some Ozzy Osbourne records and just go ham.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, man. Well, good to catch up with you. I really appreciate you taking the time.
How's that steel guitar going?
Real bad. I've got my How to Play Pedal Steel Guitar DVD right here. It's not easy. That was one of my COVID, fascinations. I've spent a little time with it and not enough.
Probably been on a roo and that tattoo ain't the only one you got. Baby, I bet you.
All right, that was Randy Rogers from the Randy Rogers Band. Go catch them wherever they are on the tour that never ends. And I hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving. And we'll see you in December. And if you're around the West Coast, man, come out to one of my shows. We're all over the great state of California, Nevada, Arizona. It's going to be a real hoot. We'll see you then. Adios, amigos!
If I bought you a drink, we could get on out of here, girl, whatever you think. Let you drive a fast car. I bet you could drive me crazy if you wanted to.